Hello and welcome to Outside In. My name is Steven. Today we're going to be looking at a Rui Deng 5020 DPS. Now, a lot of people call it a power supply, but it's actually not a power supply. What it is it is a interface for a power supply. I'm going to go through all the settings. I will walk through this with you and show you how everything works, and these are awesome. So without further ado, let's get right to it, and that would be camera one. It looks like camera one. Okay, so here we go. All right, this is the Rui Deng DPS5020. And it has USB and Bluetooth communication, this model. And it comes with a card in Chinese, and then if you flip it over, it's in English. Now, this is the main interface. Let's take this plastic piece off. And don't worry, we're going to zoom in here in a little bit. And here's the main circuit board. All right, let's zoom in here so we can see a little bit better. These two ports right here is what you'll be plugging the flat cables into to connect the display, and we'll do that in a minute. This here is the input, negative, positive input from your power supply, and then this will be the output, positive and negative, going to your load. Okay, so what I did was I created little terminals to screw onto this to give myself some output for this. We're going to use the Rui RD6024 as our power source to power this device. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect these. You need to get yourself a power supply to be able to make this a power supply. Now what I'm going to do is I have connected alligator clips to the Rui so I can get my input. You'll notice on here it says LCD and the other one says key. And also, if you can see right there, this is labeled key, this one is labeled LCD. So it's quite easy to make sure you get these in the correct position, and you plug in your flat cable on the key and then plug it in on this one that says key to make that connection. Make sure your cable is around the right way. Will fit right inside that like a key. Honestly, I don't think it'll plug in the other way. All right, so let's go ahead and plug the LCD in. And like I said, it's keyed, so you can't get it connected wrong. Even if you tried to plug it in the other way, it won't go in. See that? And then if you turn that around the correct way, then it keys right in there and fits perfectly. So you just push that in, get a good connection, and then plug the other end of that flat cable into the LCD, and then there you're good to go. I made this a long time ago. I can throw it 18650 or AAA or whatever that's rechargeable into this, and then plug this into my power supply and charge batteries or test batteries or whatever that I want to do. We're going to show you how this works, charging up a 18650 battery. So let's get this plugged in. Make sure you get this plugged in the correct way. Red to positive, black to negative. Let's go ahead and set this. We'll set this to 55 volts. Okay, now we have this set. Now we're going to press the power button to turn on our power supply to power the DPS5020. So let's go ahead and turn the power supply on. And now it starts up, Rui Deng, and it is showing 55 volt input, and that is awesome. I love these things. A lot of people I see complain because when they get this, it doesn't do anything. Well, it's not going to do anything without a power supply. So this is just a control module. You can input up to 60 volts and 20 amps, but it outputs from 0 to 50 volts and 20 amps. Okay, so let's look at some interface here on this DPS5020. Down here is showing the volts in is 54.99, so 55 volts input, which is exactly what the Rui Deng is putting out. CV, that means constant voltage, and that's what this will show when you're in a constant voltage output. When you're in a constant current output, you're charging something, this will change to CC to mean constant current. If you want to set your volts, the button right here says V. When you press the voltage button, one of these numbers will get highlighted. And that will give you a fine adjustment. If you want to get a little coarser with your adjustment, you can press down on this rotary button and see that moves over to the hundredths place. And then you can go by hundredths. So it gives you a little coarser adjustment. If you want even more coarse adjustment, you can click this button again so you can move one at a time up in your voltage. Okay, and that is going to be a real coarse. You can adjust it by 1 volt at a time, or tenths of a volt at a time, and hundredths of a volt at a time. So there's a lot of adjustment with this. We're going to charge of 18650. So they charge to 4.2 volts. So let's set that to 4 volts, and then let's press the button down until we get to the hundredths place and put it at 0.2, because that is where you would charge an 18650. Now some people charge it 3.9, and that's fine, however you want to charge it, but just don't go over 4.2. So what you could also do is you could go down to the tenths place and go down to 4.19 or 4.18. Okay, but the thing is, you get your voltage output set. Once you press the on button, then this is going to be live. The button down at the bottom is for amps. Okay, now remember, same thing with the rotary button. You press down to move what you want to adjust. You can go down tenths at a time. You can go up and down 100 milliamps at a time. Or you can go down 1 amp at a time. Or it looks like this here, you can go down 10 amps. Or go up 10 amps at a time. We're just going to set it to 1 amp, 01.00, and then press the amp button again to exit that. Same with voltage. When you press the voltage button to set the voltage, once you get finished setting it, press the voltage button again to exit. And then press the power button to activate the output, but we'll get to that. Right now, we want to look at the menu items and press the set button to go into the menu. You use up and down arrows to move through the menu items. Once you get to an item that you want to edit, you press this button to move into that to make settings. And we can go ahead and change to 5 if we want, or 6. Since we're doing an 18650, we want to keep the voltage output to 4.2. So this is the voltage output once you press the power button. Okay, once we've made our setting, then we'll press the set button again to go back out of that. And if we want to move down the list, we'll use the down arrow to move through the list. Now the second option down is the amps for the output. Once you press the power button. Again, the rotary button, you can enter that setting by pushing down on the rotary button. See, the 0 is highlighted. If I press it again, the 1 will be highlighted. If I press it again, the 100ths will be highlighted, and then the tenths will be highlighted. So we can go up in tenths, or we can go up and down in 100ths, like 100 milliamps at a time for more coarse. And we can go 10 amps at a time or 1 amp at a time. So anyway, we're going to leave this set at 1 amp for our output. And then once we've finished, then we hit the set button to go back. And now we press the down arrow to go into the other settings. This setting here is for over voltage protection. The over voltage protection is for the output. Okay, so we are protecting our battery from going over voltage. So, or whatever that you have plugged into the output. Press the rotary button to make changes. This is set at 4.2 volts. So if we set this at 4 volts and then go back out, if we turn this on, it's going to come back off because the output voltage is higher than what I want it to be. So if I press this power button to turn it on, it automatically comes right back off and shows over voltage protection. So that's how that over voltage protection works. That's what that is for. That is for your output. On the output, as the over voltage protection, and you forget yourself and you set the voltage, the output to 14 or to 12, then it's going to protect your load. And that's how that works. But we're just going to set it back because right now I don't want to do that. All right, over current protection is the same thing. You highlight OCP, stands for over current protection. You press the rotary button to go into that setting. The 2 is highlighted. If you press this again, the 0 is highlighted. The 0.2 is highlighted. The 0 is highlighted. So that's 1/10 of an amp, 1/100th of an amp, 1 amp, and tens of amps. Okay, so if you want to protect your 18650 from not getting too much amps, you could set this to, I guess we could go ahead and do that. Set that to 0. We'll go to 100ths, and we'll set it at 500 milliamp. So that is set, overcurrent protection is set at 500 milliamp. So if the battery tries to accept 1 amp, it will shut it down. It will shut down to protect the battery. So that's how the overcurrent protection works. So let's just go ahead while we're doing it. Let's just try that out, and let's put our battery in here. Once you get your load attached to your power supply here, the battery right now is at 3.5 volts on this 18650. And right here is the voltage of the 18650 is at 3.50. But remember, the overcurrent, we set an overcurrent protection of 500 milliamps. Now you'll see right here that I have the charging at 1 amp. So this is probably going to try to accept, being that it's 3.5, it's probably going to try to accept the 1 amp. And it should, once we turn this on, this OVP should turn into OCP, which means overcurrent protection, and this green light will go out. So let's give it a shot. There, it did it. Overcurrent protection was triggered because this tried to take 1 amp. So let's go ahead and put that back. And I'm just going to set this to 20 amps. So now if we go back and we press the power button again, it will start charging because now it's accepting the 1 amp that we set it to. And it's charging. Now this number will creep up little at a time. Will creep up. Now what I really love about these things is that, let's turn this off. Let's change our amperage. Say we have an 18650 that has went under voltage and we want to try to recover it. Okay. Once we select the amp button, then we can push down on the rotary button to change different values. Let's put this down to 0. Let's go to the 10ths. Okay, let's do a slow charge on this battery because it has went under voltage. Say it's went down to 0.9 volts or 1 volt on an 18650 and you want to try to recover it. Now you can do 100 milliamp, which should be fine, but to be even safer, put it at 50 milliamps. And then once you've set it to 50 milliamps, because it would be 0.05 would be 50 milliamps. So let's hit the amp button again to escape that setting. And now when we turn this on, 0.05, which would be 50 milliamps. Here's another thing that's cool about this. You can change this on the fly. Press the amp button, okay? You can change this on the fly. Now it's charging at 150 milliamps. It's actually probably 149, but the resolution is not as high on these, so you're not going to get that third number, but it's probably 149. Now we just threw 2 amps into this. I don't want to do that. But 1 amp, we just threw live. It was live. So that is what's cool about that too. But just be careful trying to change the amps when you're live. Because whatever you turn that to, it's going to try to throw it into the battery if the battery will take it. And the battery may be, if you're trying to recover a battery, if you try to throw too many amps into it and the battery will try to take it, you could actually damage or even cause a fire. So just be very careful there. If you're trying to recover a battery, I would definitely recommend, is what I usually do, which works very well, is a lot of times I will either do 50 milliamp. I've even went as low as 10 milliamp for a while just to get something going with the battery to try to recover it. You can also use 100 milliamp to try to recover an 18650 or really any battery. Definitely don't want to do this with polymer batteries. I don't like polymer batteries to begin with, but yeah, 18650s are a lot more safe to do something like this with. But just remember, when you're messing with any kind of lithium battery, don't try to force it. If you try to force something down its throat, then it could burst into flames. So, okay, so let's get back. Let's turn this off and let's get back to the menu. This is over power protection, OPP, over power protection. So you can set the wattage on this as well. Whatever you have plugged into your output. If you don't want it to get anything more than 500 watts, you can set this. Let's just put it back down to 0 and start over. 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can set this to 500 watts for your output. So whatever you're powering, if you set your output wrong, that's going to give you more than 500 watts out. Soon as you press the power button, it will immediately shut off and you'll be like, oh, I forgot all about that. I set my voltage and amps wrong. So I was given way more watts than I wanted it to get. So yeah, these protection features are absolutely incredible. So, but I'm just going to go back and I'm going to set this back to maximum because I don't have any need for using that right this minute. Okay. Now the next option down is BLED, so backlight LED. So if we press our rotary button again to go into settings, we can go down to 0, which as you can see made it really dim. Number 1 made it brighter, number 2 a lot brighter, 3, 4, and 5. It goes up to 5. So 4 is always good for me, but if you need it to be brighter, you can do that, set it, and then press the set button again to escape that. Press the down button to move to the next one. We can set different voltage output. Say memory 1, we want to be at 13.8 volts. We want to be able to charge lead acid batteries. So let's go set the voltage or the amp on that as well to 5 amps. Let's set that. Let's go back into M1 and then press and hold the set button. So now the M1 is displayed here. So that means that now we have the M1 group is set 13.8 volt, 5 amp. If we want to set another group, so let's just move over to M5. Let's go up and set that voltage to, let's see what else. Let's say 3.7 because lithium iron phosphate batteries usually charge to 3.7 volts each cell. Let's set the amps to 2 amps on that one. Let's go back down to memory 5 and then let's press and hold the set button for 2 seconds or so. M5 will display there. Now if we go back to M1 is set at 13.8 and we set 5 amp. Now we can go in here and set all of these up and then we can have a piece of paper with it written down what each one of these stand for. So M1 and M5. So let's go back. Okay, so now we want to charge a lead acid battery. And remember, we set it to M1, okay? It was 13.8 volts out, and I believe it was 5 amps. So if we press and hold the set button for like 2 seconds or so, there will be an M number show up here. Watch. 1, 2, 3. M0 is what it's on right now. So if we go to memory group 1, remember we set 13.8 volts and 5 amps. So let's see if that worked. Yeah, the only thing that sucks though is it doesn't show you what a preview. Press the set button to go into the memory 1. And it sets to 13.8 volts, 5 amps is what we set in the menu. We had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we set M5 at 3.7 volts. Yeah, 3.7. Okay, so just remember that M0 cannot be set. So what you would have to go do is press the set button to go into the menu. Move down to the M pre-select section. We'd have to go in here and select the memory spot first. The group where we want this new setting to be. M1 we set to 13.8 volt. and 5 amp. Memory 5 we set to 3.7 volt, 2 amp. So let's say we want to go to memory 2, and then let's back out of that and let's go up and set the voltage to 1.5 volt for a AAA battery or a AA battery. Let's go down and let's set our charging current to 300 milliamp. Okay, now we need to go back down to the pre and go into where the M2 is highlighted, and then press and hold the set button to save that. Okay, so now it's saved. All right, so now to recall a memory group, press and hold the set button for about 3 seconds. And then the memory group option will be displayed right here. All we need to do to change to one of those groups is turn the rotary button. So let's go to M1. Now, once you've selected the group that you want, M1, remember it was 13.8 volt, 5 amp, I think. Press the set button real quick, just press it. And it changes. Now, your output is set at 13.8 volt, 5 amp. All right, if you want to go to another group, press and hold the set button for like 3 seconds. And then go to 2. I think 2 is where we set 1.5 volt and 300 milliamp. So let's just press the set button to accept that. 1.5 volt, 300 milliamp. And then we had the memory group 5. And we had that set to 3.7 volts and I think 2 amps or something like that. I think 2 amps. So let's just press the set button to accept that. And we move into the 3.7 volt, 2 amp mode. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. So you have 9 memory presets that you can set individually. So I would just suggest getting a piece of paper and writing M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, and 6. And then set your voltage on each one of those memory slots, how you want it to be for different projects that you do on a normal, regular basis. Now, the memories are really cool on the right-end. It's so much nicer to use the right-end to set things. But this does work. It's just a lot more steps that you have to go through. This last setting here, it enables you to have this automatically turn the output on when you first power this on. Believe me, you're going to find that that is a big mistake. Now, if you use this for just one thing only, then yeah, that would probably be great to have this automatically come on. Every time you've turned this on, it automatically turns the output power on. But if you're using this for a multitude of things like I do, you could be throwing 20 volts into something that don't want any more than 2 volts, and you could blow it up. So just be very careful using that automatic turn on feature. So let's go to M1. If you remember, that was 13.8 volt. Press the set button. That sets to memory group 1, which was 13.8 volts. Now let's power off and see if it starts back up in that same mode. And it did. See, that is why. Okay, so now watch. Let's go in here all the way to the bottom. Let's turn on the automatic output. Okay, now the automatic output is on. So let's turn the power supply off. Remember, the last thing we used was 13.8 volts. All right, so I've went ahead and just, I'm not going to actually do it. I'm just hypothetically going ahead and just putting this 18650 battery in here, because now I'm going to get ready to charge an 18650 battery. Here, let me show you what's really bad about what we just did. Once we turn the power supply on, this is controlling, that we've set this to automatically throw output power to our device. Watch what happens. Automatically, it's right now throwing 13.8 volts and 5 amps. If right to this right here, there is 13.8 volts right there. Can you imagine putting 13.8 volts into this thing? Not good. This is why I say I never turn this on. I always leave this off. I always turn that. Please turn that off, and you are going to thank yourself later for having that off. So let's just to show you, we've turned it off. Now the next time we start it up, it's in the off state. Check. Big thumbs up for that, because there's 13.8 volts. And if we were working on something that required 25 volts, and then we go to do our little AAA battery, which is 1.5 volts, and if we have that set to automatically put power to the output, then we're going to throw 25 volts into that 1.5 volt battery. Not a good idea. So yeah, when you first get this, check that. First thing you should do is check that. This input current, if that is set, the startup, maybe that's what the S stands for, startup input power. So the startup input power, if that is set to on, you want to make sure that you highlight that, press the rotary key to enter it in to set it to off. Turn the button up or down, it doesn't matter, to the off. Make sure it says off. And then press the set button to accept what you just set it to be off, and then press the set button again to go back to your main screen. That way, you're not going to accidentally cause a fire or blow up whatever you have currently plugged into the output, okay? Make sure that this is off. And it's nothing to just press this button to turn it on once you've made your settings. If you're going to charge AAA and AA battery, make sure that it's a rechargeable battery. Don't listen to these people that say that you can throw charge into a non-rechargeable AA, AAA. It's not worth it. It's not worth the nightmare you could cause. So yeah, it's just not good practice to do that. I just want to show you one more thing. Let's turn this power supply off. If you want to use the Bluetooth board, then you would take the cable that comes with it, with your unit, and plug it into there. Then plug the other end of this cable into this port right here on the main board. Make sure it's turned around the right way. Okay, and then now that the Bluetooth is plugged in, then when you power this on, then you can use the app that you can download to run the device. And then if you don't want to use the Bluetooth, use the USB connection, you would plug one end of your cable into this board. Now this is plugged in. Now plug this end into the board and use the PC program to run this. There are videos online about using the PC program with this DPS device. Okay, so that's it. That is the Rui Deng DPS5020. I don't want you to think this is a power supply, because it's not. It's just a control interface. You still need to get a power supply. You just got to be careful about those really cheap knockoff power supplies. A lot of companies try to replicate Meanwell, but they don't do a very good job. But if you want a really good power supply, make sure you get a Meanwell power supply. Glenn, let us know in the comments if Rui Deng actually makes a power supply, because that would be awesome to know. I trust Rui Deng, so whatever power supplies they're using, they're evidently really good quality, or they wouldn't be using them with their good quality devices. The Rui Deng DPS5020, the 5015, the 30 something, and they have a number of different DPS units with different output options. But just know they're just control modules that you need a power supply in order for it to work. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when I have new videos out. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, find someone that needs a reason to go on and give them that reason. Find someone that needs a laugh and make them laugh. God bless each and every one of us, and I will see you in the next one.